In climate science, the word weak used to be a relief. It meant the storm was passing and we could finally breathe. But in 2026, that word has become a lethal trap. We were promised a weak La Niña, but the old rules? They've been deleted. While coastal regions drown, entire continents are parching under record-breaking droughts. There is a glitch in our planetary system, a hidden mechanism turning small changes into global disasters. With CO2 levels surging past 420 ppm, we've entered a paradox where the weak are now the most dangerous. In this video explainer, let's discover the 2026 weather paradox, a phenomenon where technically minor climate shifts result in catastrophic global impacts. Despite a forecasted weak La Niña, a sharp sea surface temperature gradient and record-breaking CO2 levels are amplifying weather extremes, leading to massive floods and severe droughts. Right here, only at Interesting Facts TV.
You know, when you hear the word weak in a weather forecast, it's usually a good thing, right? It's a sign of relief. It means the storm is passing, that we can all breathe a little easier. But what if I told you that in 2026, that very same word has become a dangerous trap? That's what we're diving into today. Exactly why small changes are becoming so deadly.
All right, so here's the deal. The official forecast called for a weak La Niña. Now, that's just a fancy term for a periodic cooling of the Pacific Ocean. Normally, this means a milder, predictable year for global weather. By all the old rules, this should have been a low-impact year. But that's not what's happening. Not even close. Right now, as we speak, coastal regions are getting hammered by floods they're calling once-in-a-century events. And at the exact same time, huge parts of Asia and Africa are being absolutely baked by record-breaking droughts. The forecast and what's actually happening on the ground, they're worlds apart.
So, what gives? How can a supposedly weak weather pattern cause this much chaos on a global scale? That's the core question we're tackling. And the answer is pretty unsettling. The old rules, well, they just don't apply anymore. It's like there's a glitch in the Earth's operating system, a hidden mechanism that's taking these small, seemingly minor changes and cranking them up into full-blown global disasters.
Okay, so to really get what's going on, we've got to look past that weak label. We need to find this hidden amplifier. There's some other powerful force at play here, something that the traditional forecasts just aren't seeing.
And here it is. The hidden mechanism is something called the east-west sea surface temperature gradient. I know it's a mouthful, but the idea is actually pretty simple. I want you to think of it like a stereo system. The La Niña, that's the music, but the volume is turned way down. It's weak. But this temperature gradient, this huge difference in ocean heat from one side of the Pacific to the other, that's the amplifier. And right now, that amplifier is cranked all the way to max, taking that quiet signal and blasting it, supercharging weather patterns all over the planet.
But wait, there's more. We can't talk about the amplifier without talking about the power source. For the first time ever in human history, the CO2 in our atmosphere has rocketed past 420 parts per million. Think of this as the raw power being plugged into that amplifier. It's a constant source of extra fuel in the system, and it's powering these extreme weather events that honestly should be impossible during a weak pattern.
So when you combine this supercharged amplifier with all that extra energy in the background, well, it's not just a cool science experiment. This is having devastating real-world consequences. It's creating a world of extremes. Let's take a look at how this is actually playing out on the ground. And the results are, well, they're terrifyingly clear. In the first part of 2026 alone, we've already seen these ocean issues trigger massive storms and floods, the kind that are just completely overwhelming our coastal cities. But then it's a tale of two extremes, because while the coasts are flooding, mid-2026 is bringing record heat. We're talking marine heat waves that are bleaching our coral reefs and agricultural stress hitting a breaking point across Asia, Africa, and South America. This isn't just about bad weather. It's about crops failing and a massive spike in food insecurity.
And of course, let's talk about the money, because the economic math here is just staggering. See, because these greenhouse gases keep accumulating, the damages we're seeing now from climate events, they're projected to be 5 times larger over the next 60 years than they were in the last 30. This isn't a slow, steady increase, it's an acceleration. The costs are compounding on themselves, getting bigger, faster all the time.
Now, with dangers this clear, this present, you'd think the whole world would be uniting, pulling in the same direction, right? Well,
Instead, as the planet hits these critical tipping points, what we're actually seeing is a great global divide.
It's like we're watching two completely different paths being forged at the same time. On one side, you've got countries like China pushing ahead, really leading the pack on renewable energy and setting up things like carbon trading. But then on the other side, you have a slowdown in places like the US, where federal climate initiatives are being rolled back, and that's putting the brakes on international momentum. What this does is create a really dangerous climate response gap. It's widening the gap between the rich and the poor, and it's leaving the most vulnerable people on Earth to face the absolute worst of all this.
So this whole 2026 weather paradox, it's not just another warning sign. This feels different. This feels like a final wake-up call. The days of assuming that a small change happening on the other side of the planet won't have a direct and maybe even devastating impact on our own lives, those days are over.
Look, the path forward here really demands we act now and we act decisively on three main fronts. First, we have to strengthen our resilience. That means getting our disaster preparedness systems ready today. Second, we've got to hit the accelerator on the transition to renewable energy. We have to cut off the fuel that's feeding these extreme events. And third, we need real, genuine global cooperation to close that dangerous gap between the nations that can weather this storm and those that are most vulnerable.
So, if you take away just one thing from all of this, let it be this: the old rules are gone. The assumptions we've been operating on about how our climate works, they just don't hold up anymore. This glitch, this weather paradox we're seeing in 2026, this is the new reality, and it is way past time we all started acting like it.